All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse Lab Services webinar series. We're going to be talking about post-vaccine lab testing. So we're letting people kind of come in now. I know we had about 300 people register for this webinar, so we appreciate you guys showing up. We're going to jump into it here in just a moment. All right, so today we're going to be talking about the post-vaccine lab tests that are available, two in particular. I think this is a question that I get more than anything else right now from labs that have been performing COVID testing is kind of a what's next. Some of them are looking really long-term. This is more of a short-term pivot in a way to continue some of the COVID testing that has been happening and offer some unique tests that we think will be a little bit of a tail on this pandemic, so we're going to get into that. Before we do so, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping items. So if you guys are having trouble with buffering or hearing me or choppy streaming, go ahead and just close down any heavy bandwidth apps or any other windows that you might have that could and should help. Probably the most common question I get on a webinar is, will this be recorded and can I send it to you afterwards? The answer is yes and yes. We are recording it. You'll automatically get a link to this recording sent to you, so you don't even need to do anything or request it. Just give us a day or so to get it out the door, but that will come your way. Questions. If you have questions, you can use the Q&A section. You'll see that on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll also have a chat section, and we also have a polls section. So we encourage you to check out those polls, chat if you have a comment. If you have a question, the best place for that, though, is the Q&A. That way we can keep it threaded and try to keep those answers underneath the questions as much as possible. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Want to do a little bit of an introduction of Lighthouse and who we are. So Lighthouse Lab Services, we've been in business almost 18 years ago. I founded this, and we offer this webinar series for free. We hope to always keep it free. In order to do that, we continue to provide services to labs. So just give me a 10-second opportunity to just tell you about who we are. Not a hard sell, but if you ever need us, we'd love to talk to you. We do medical laboratory recruiting, we do consulting, setups of new labs, CLIA applications, validation of lab-developed tests. We do managed service offerings. If you don't want the headaches of running a lab, we'll go ahead and handle the operational pieces for you. We do own our own LIS, Beacon LIS, so if you need a cloud-based, affordable LIS that could be stood up quickly and probably a little bit cheaper than maybe you're paying, let us know. And then we do provide lab directors to 228 high-complexity CLIA labs around the country right now, so more than anybody else, I believe. And so if you ever need a lab director or to change a lab director, please reach out. We would love to help. All right, so today we're going to be getting into two different tests. One is a titer, COVID titer, and one is a neutralizing antibody test. Fairly related, but there is a distinction there. So what exactly is a titer? You guys have probably heard of this. If you're anything like me, I heard of titers when I was getting my kids into school. But a titer is a lab test that measures the presence or amount of an antibody in a blood. It can be used to prove immunity, or at least prove exposure or vaccine. The titer testing employs serial dilution, so we'll get into that a little bit. And it will continue to be diluted until it falls out, and that's how you kind of figure out where the titer level is. So when is a titer ordered? When is it used? Probably most commonly is when you lose your vaccine or your immunization records, right? So you go to enroll your kid in kindergarten and you don't have proof that he got the measles or mumps vaccine. Instead of re-vaccinating them, they typically would do a titer. I think the same thing would happen with COVID, right? I think we have hundreds of millions of people here in the States getting vaccinated. I think some of them are going to lose their immunization records. And I think the need for titer testing will manifest itself here soon. So this is an opportunity to have that offering on your test menu. So when those people do need that testing, you'll be able to offer it. Other reasons where you might need a titer for an employer, for school, your doctor may want to look at it before you travel. And as we mentioned, it measures antibody level to determine maybe if a booster is needed. So that's another big part of this is how long is the vaccine good for? Still to be determined, TBD, but a lab test to be able to measure is going to be a key part of that to know when and if a booster is required. So what is the opportunity for the titer? The reimbursement code 0224U is your traditional antibody titer, and it's going to pay $42.13. That's across all MACs, and it's uniform. Where there's a unique opportunity is this neutralizing antibody SARS-CoV-2 titer, and that's the 86409, and it reimburses between $79 and $105 by Medicare. I think it's a better test. You know, it's going to measure, we're going to talk about neutralizing antibodies in a little bit and why we think that's better, but it's an interesting difference, and I think it's a little bit of a signal from Medicare CMS that they have established these codes, and that kind of points to a need for this testing to occur. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We'll talk later in the presentation about what it costs to run those tests or to reference those tests, and I think that'll be helpful as you determine whether this is a good fit for your laboratory. So the second part is what exactly is a neutralizing antibody, right? So we hear a lot about antibody testing. Why is neutralizing antibodies any different? And I'm kind of shocked that this has not been a bigger conversation all along. Most of the testing that we've seen for antibodies, most kits that have come out, most tests that are on the market are traditional antibody tests. And a neutralizing antibody is an important specific defense against viral invaders. And the neutralizing antibodies not only bind, but they also bind in a manner to block, right? And only a small subset of the antibodies that are there are neutralizing and capable of neutralizing. So I think that's a really important distinction, because I think the antibody testing has been used incorrectly, and people assume that if you're positive for antibodies, that correlates really highly to, you know, being immune or having resistance, when that's not necessarily the case. So we think that there's going to be a need to look at the specific types of antibodies that do provide that immunity. From the FDA, we're going to go over a few different things. This is a tricky time right now, but they had approved, and I pulled this, it might be a few weeks old, so the numbers might have changed a little bit, but at that time, they had approved 50 antibody serology tests, and of those, only one of them was a neutralizing antibody test. So of everything on the market that had received the FDA UA approval, only one measured the types of antibodies that really matter, which is mind-blowing to me, and I think that's an opportunity there. And some of the messaging from Dr. Stenzel at the FDA was the ability to detect neutralizing antibodies can help us gain additional insight. So they're absolutely looking at this, and you know, that this is going to be a good tool in the fight against this vaccine, and I also think against this virus, and I also think it's going to be an important component of the vaccine tracking and knowing when boosters are needed and when we might trail off to a level where our vaccine is no longer effective. So what we're talking about today is a test that's put out. It's an ELISA-based test. It was called Immunorank. That's a research use only test. It's created by Lineco. It had never been brought into a CLIA environment. We have validated it in a CLIA high complexity lab and taken it from RUO into a laboratory that you can reference to. We'll talk about that in a minute, because we think that there's really just a need for this test. It does give you an immunity rank score between 0 and 100. We're going to validate it as a semi-quantitative assay with a low, medium, and high, because we feel like that's going to be the easiest way to kind of make sense of those numbers while we wait on additional medical publications to really guide us there. One thing I did want to mention from the FDA is they came out a few days ago, MLO covered this, and said, you know, beware, antibody testing does not mean immunity, right? So the FDA has clearly messaged, we don't want labs saying, hey, you're positive for an antibody test, you're immune. That's not it's not a 100% true statement, right? So there's a correlation there, but we need to know more about it. More research is needed. I think this goes back to the fact that a lot of antibody tests don't measure the neutralizing antibodies, and they don't measure it in a quantitative way. So that's why I think that this test will be really valuable, because the FDA is messaging they want a more robust test. They need something more than just your general antibody test in order to make those decisions. But for the time being, you can run these tests, and it's a little bit tricky to know what to do with that lab result. We know as labs, we're never telling patients or physicians, what to do with the results. But hopefully we will be able to point them to some kind of medical publications in the future that document, hey, these are immunity levels where you can feel comfortable or safe, and below these levels you may need to get a booster or some other preventative measures need to take place. So here's some of the science behind the test. I'm not going to go deep on this today because I usually have a scientist with me to cover this, and I just wanted to include it in the presentation so that you guys had it. I have all of this information and more if you wanted to go into the weeds on it. So just let us know, and you can do that through messaging us. Some of the applications for it, we are validating this, as I mentioned, for the first time in a CLIA environment as a diagnostic test. We do think it's going to have some post-vaccine applications and just tracking overall population immunity tracking. It had been used previously and continues to be used in research settings for different studies that are occurring and to measure vaccine efficiency or effectiveness. And some other key pieces that you need to know is this does not need to be done in a BSL-3 lab. We can get some pricing that's better if you do decide to go forward with this and wanted to put it in your lab. We've negotiated with the vendor to try to get some good pricing for bulk orders. And it is fairly high throughput. It runs on a 96 well plate. And so the neutralizing antibody, even on a quantitative way, only takes up one well. So we can help validate this in a way where you're only going to use one well per sample, and you can get about 88 samples on a 96 well plate. It's an ELISA plate, not a PCR plate. For the titer, you have to run that in serial dilutions, and so you get about 22 samples. You'll get 22 samples per 96 well plate, so a little bit less, but the plates are the same. So I think that's a really nice feature that you don't have to have two separate plates and reagent sets. You're able to use the same ones and run them either as titer or neutralizing antibody, depending on what was ordered. The reimbursement for antibody testing, nothing too sexy here. Traditional antibody testing is $42. It's across all MACs. Neutralizing antibodies, the same for the screen. So that would be for a qualitative result, not quantitative. For a quantitative antibody, you get a little bit more. So you move up from 42 to 51 in some MACs, and I'll have that chart a little bit later. So you'll have it, but it really doesn't compensate you too much more, but it is a much better test. So I think the real win is more on the clinical utility of the result versus the reimbursement here. And so what are the options for my lab? If you guys are interested in this, you wanted to be able to offer your customers the titer or the neutralizing antibody test or both. It seems to make sense to do both since it's going to be the same equipment and same plates. There's a couple options. You can either reference that test out to another lab. As I mentioned, we have validated this at a lab. The lab that we validated in is called MetaLab-Dx, and we've negotiated a price of $28 a test for the quantitative neutralizing antibody test and for $48 a test for the Covid Titer test. So these are flat lab-to-lab client bill rates, and we can connect you with the manager over at MetaLab-Dx to get an agreement in place. If that's something that you're interested in, you'd be able to add it to your test menu and then reference it out. The other option is to bring it in-house, and we'd be happy to do that and give you some guidance on how to bring this test in-house. You can purchase from Lineco, and we can kind of share what we did in a separate validation to help you guys validate this. The total cost for that is going to be about $62,000. That includes the equipment. You're going to need a ELISA plate reader, washer, and some additional ancillary equipment as well. You'll need validation supplies. You'll need kind of the consulting to write the validation plan, do the data analysis, and compile that into a validation summary that meets CLIA standards. So we have that package put together at $62. It might be a hybrid of the two as well, right? So you might want to test the market because it is a little bit of an unknown to know what the response to these tests will be. So you could go ahead and start with referencing samples to MetaLab-Dx And if you got a book of business that made sense, we'd be happy to bring that testing in-house. I think I did some math, and you need at least probably 3,000 to 4,000 samples before the break even makes sense, and that's total, not a month, to bring the testing in-house. So not super expensive to do, but also a little bit of an unknown market. So you can contact us. We had some pop-ups there on the screen. If you're interested in speaking with one of our account managers, they can go through kind of what this would look like and get you some additional information and paperwork to review if it's something that you're interested in. This is just the chart that shows those different reimbursements for pretty much everything COVID related. These are the different billing codes, CPT codes, and the associated reimbursement. The JE, JF, so all along the top there, those correspond to different MACs. So you might have to cross-reference that or Google it to get a chart on. I didn't include that here. But yeah, so that's basically it. And we can open it up to questions at this time. I'll go ahead and see if there's any waiting in the queue. I don't think so. So I'll give you guys a minute to go ahead and ask questions if you have any. But I appreciate you guys.
Q&A section published. We have questions in there.
Okay, sure. There we go. Yep, I got them now. What is the price for the kit? Does it come with calibration standards? It's kind of a package, and so we will, give you a quote on everything you need in terms of validation samples, the kits, but they're going to run. If you're going to buy them yourself and want to do your own validation, it's a little over $9 per kit. I think we can get that pricing down if there's some bulk there. Is it Immunorank, the EUA? It has been filed for an EUA, and they are waiting on the final of that, but it can be validated as an LDT in the meantime. Are there any consensus standards for neutralizing antibody tests? This is a tricky one where I think there's agreement on how to approach the test and how to get the scores. We did have a lot of samples come from NIH that were run. So we have a really good pool of candidates, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. So we have a good population set, and we were able to look at kind of where those groups resided statistically and break them up into 3 semi-quantitative buckets, the low, medium, and high, based on what we saw out there in the real world. But we still are waiting on that, official medical guidance on, this is the level you need to be at to be safe. And we don't know that. FDA has not published that yet. They are saying more research is needed and it's happening. So fingers crossed, we're hoping that will come through soon. And what else we got here? Do we know of any countries considering this test as a requirement for travel? I can't specifically say that I do. I do think it's a better test than using a traditional antibody test for sure, but it's still to be determined on kind of how that will shake out. Some of these other questions get a little bit more into the weeds, so I'll take those offline if anybody would like to speak with Dr. Magnani, who's the molecular PhD that we had on this project that performed this validation plan. We can get answers to specific questions. The best way to go about it, though, is if you want to talk to our team, go ahead and reach out to us, and we'll set up a call, go into it, and I'll go ahead and I'll give you one more chance to respond to that. But if you want to go ahead and click on that, we will make sure to set an appointment and answer any questions that you guys might have. On the polls, we'll just cover those real quick. If you didn't get a chance to look at those, you can go ahead and click over. And so do you think there'll be a need for Covid Titer testing with the majority of Americans getting vaccinated? 46% of you said yes, that there will be a need for titer, right? So that's a really strong number, and the other 42% are a maybe. So I think, what is that? But it's at 88% of people think maybe or yes. Great time to probably get that testing set up. I think it will be a rush if that does become a movement, and you might be a little bit late to it if you wait until the market emerges. So something to think about. Do you think the difference between traditional antibody testing and neutralizing antibody testing will be important? 6% of people don't think it's going to be important. People don't really care. 47% of people think yes, some people, and 46% also think yes, people are getting a little bit more educated on the science behind this. It's amazing when I go just on my street and talk to a neighbor how much people know about COVID testing now, right? You would never have thought that. I never had people in my life that were non-science related wanting to talk about laboratory issues so much as this past year, as I'm sure is true for many of you as well. So I appreciate you guys all coming by today. As we mentioned at the beginning of this, we will have a recording that's going to be sent out to everyone, and we would love to chat with you. So if you want to hear more, let us know, and we'll go ahead and we'll set up a call so that we can talk to you about what a path forward might look like for your lab. Thank you. Have a great day.